This is the Expanding Boundaries podcast.
Do you feel trapped? Stuck in a world of mediocrity, constrained by bad habits, limiting beliefs, and feeling unfulfilled? Do you feel that deep down you know you were destined for much more? In Expanding Boundaries, you'll discover how you can break free and step into your real life, a life without limits. And now, here's your host, Michael McLeish.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Expanding Boundaries podcast once again. Today I have an exciting guest and a good friend of mine, Mark Andrew, on the show today. Mark, how are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. How are you doing, man?
Doing well. It's been a crazy week, as we were talking about earlier. So,
Sure. Yep. Seems
Yeah.
like 2 weeks like that.
yeah. Well, it's life as an entrepreneur, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Mark, we've known each other for a while now. We're both in the same business mastermind. I think we've known each other for roughly 3 years or so. Is that right?
Yeah, I think a little over 2, I believe.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think last January was the first time we got to kind of hang out, talk a little bit more when we were down in it was in the Keys
Yeah,
at that event.
I can't even. Isla Morada? Is that how you say
Yeah,
it?
that's right. Yep, and you rolled up in your rented Lambo. That was awesome. Well, cool. So for our audience here, can you just tell us a little bit more about who you are and what do you do?
Yeah. So Mark Andrew, so basically I'm in several businesses. I have companies that I've started. I've had companies that I've invested in. I currently have companies that we are in the process of starting and rolling out, and we do a little bit of consulting work as well, where we come in and help companies achieve, what they want to get out of their business or how they want to scale. And we kind of come in and help those companies come in and scale like that. So do a multitude of things. My primary business that really kind of got me started is a construction company that we primarily do roofing, siding, and then a few other things. So that's my primary business, and that's really kind of what got me going in business. Before that, I was in several sales positions, and I did very well. I did well enough where I was typically making more than owners of the companies I was working for. So
Awesome.
yeah, it was always nice, and sometimes I got a little heat for it, which is funny. But yes, sales is really kind of what got me into wanting to be in business. I always knew that I wanted to be in business, and I actually, from a little kid, I wanted to own companies because my family members owned several businesses, and it was just something that I really looked up to and saw the discipline that they did every day, everything that they did and strive for was very appealing to me. So that's what really kind of took me and made me want to, be in that field. And so sales kind of just led me to that, so I was in sales for a long time and then ended up starting a construction company in 2011. And from there, it's just, things have taken off. So
Man, yeah. What, 12 years ago now, right?
yeah. It's been a little while now.
Very cool. All right. So where are you located right now?
So I'm out of just south of Indianapolis. And then, I've lived in several areas, several different states, but primary residence were in Indiana.
Okay, cool. All right. So I like to ask everybody this, what's one place in the world that you must visit at some point in your lifetime?
Yeah. So, I've always wanted to visit the pyramids over in Egypt. That's just something I've always wanted to see for myself. I've done a lot of traveling, and that's somewhere I've never been. And I'm very interested in how those are created and the technology that maybe has disappeared somehow. But to see those things in person, I've always wanted to see that.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those on my bucket list as well. So I guess what else would you do there? Just explore the pyramids there, just figure out how they were built. Anything else in Egypt that you would have to do?
Well, I think just the architecture, right, in general,
Mhm.
like in that area of the world, there's buildings that have been standing thousands of years. So it's just always intrigued me of we build buildings and they're torn down in 100 years, and
Basically disposable.
it's disposable. Yeah, it's very different of how they structured things and engineered things in that time. And I've just always been intrigued in seeing that. And but yeah, the pyramids themselves, I just think that's very unique and almost impossible how they built those things. So to see that in person, I think would be extremely cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so when you do like to travel around, besides your typical clothing and necessary toiletries, what's something that you would never leave home without when you travel?
You know, I hate to say it, it'd probably be my phone, unfortunately. And because now it's like your camera's on your phone,
Yeah.
and then being an entrepreneur, you got to be accessible. I mean, not all the time, but that's probably I would say what I would have to travel with. I mean, sure, there's other things, but my family, of course. But yeah, I would say one item would be I would have to have my phone, and that's
Yeah.
kind of sad to say that.
Amazing how things have changed over the last 10, 15 years.
It is. It is.
I remember I was in college, probably 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. I bought my first like Palm Pilot from Amazon. I think it was the first thing I ever bought from Amazon. And
Yeah.
um, and then I never would have imagined that would be combined with a phone and a camera and email
Hmm.
server and all that stuff. That's amazing.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's changed a lot.
all right, well, very cool. So I want to rewind back to your beginnings a little bit more. Were you originally from Indiana?
Yeah. Originally from Indiana. Yeah. And actually in the Indianapolis area where I
Okay.
grew up.
Okay, cool. So how did you get to, you mentioned, you had family members that wanted to, or that had businesses and you wanted to do the same or something very similar. How did you get from where you started to, that first, into sales, I guess, and then into that first business? But what was that timeline
Yeah.
looking like for you?
Well, yeah. So, and, kind of just to rewind a little bit, I didn't grow up like my parents didn't own businesses. Like we struggled and we actually grew up in a trailer. And, when I was like, I think 7 or 8, went from a trailer to, I would call it the hood almost, in a nicer way. But that's kind of where we grew up. And, my mom was working 3 jobs. My dad was working all the time, just trying to pay bills. And so that's what I saw. But then I also saw my other family members that were successful and just different things that they were doing. And maybe more of a mindset or being a little bit smarter about certain things. And it's not like, my parents did anything wrong. I mean, they were doing the best they could. But I was attracted to success and attracted to drive. So I was always wanted to be around those family members. And then I actually started working for one of my family members that owned an apple orchard. And I started working out there when I was about 9 years old.
Oh,
And it was funny because I went through school. I remember going through middle school and high school, and I always had cash, because I would always work and I'd work after school and work on the weekends. And so even back then, I just had the idea of, I could do more if I just put my mind to it or try to do something. So outside of high school, I did several things and did some construction work and things like that. But I ended up doing some sales in some retail stores and then did some door to door sales. And then really what kind of got me into the biggest sales position I ever held was when I was I was doing storm restoration work, and I would travel with a company, and we would go approach people that were hit with hailstorms, tornadoes, windstorms, and just started making really good money. And unfortunately, that ended up, being a bad relationship after about 4 years, and some things didn't end well with me and them. So I ended up starting my own company. Me and another gentleman from that same company that we were working for, and so we started a company that now is my construction company that we again primarily do roofing. So, but yeah, and actually he passed away, which is another crazy story. But he passed away and actually drowned, had a fishing incident and drowned. And I was, it was like a brother to me. So it was a rough start. I mean, we did really well for about the first year, and then that happened, and then I had to take some time to reset and figure out what life was about. And I had lost a few other people that were very close to me right about within 6 months. But so that kind of got us to the construction stuff, and slightly before then, just brief summary is, before I even got into that initial sales position as a roofing consultant, I was doing a lot of things that weren't great. I had gotten married previously, went through a bad divorce, went through losing a pretty good job that I had, and I ended up losing my first house that I built. Everything just collapsed, and it was rough. So I got involved with some not so great people and was doing some things I shouldn't have been doing, and it just led to some not great things. And so that I had a period of that, and a period of partying and all that kind of thing. And once I realized like that wasn't who I was, and I was just almost acting as someone else, I had a wake up call, and so things started to shift. But definitely at a time period where it was there were some rough things going on. So
Yeah. I don't know if you don't want to share the exact specifics, but what was it that really, how did you break free of that? Because, you settle into a habit of doing things a certain way and hang out with the certain people and doing these types of things. What was it? Was there any particular moment or thing that you were able to do to overcome that in your own mind and say enough's enough and I'm making this change today?
yeah, actually there was, and I was in a pretty bad spot. I mean, I was for a while, anyways. I couldn't even afford groceries, and
Mm,
I was going to food drives just so I could eat. I mean, it was rough, and
mm,
like couldn't pay any bills. I was the food drive food that you would get was like beans and stuff. So which is totally never a spot I ever thought I'd be in. Like not
yeah.
being able to afford food, I couldn't afford anything, and I wasn't the type of person that wanted to borrow money. So, I was doing some things I shouldn't have been doing. And without going into a lot of details, just not the right path. And, I think that the biggest thing that helped me shift was the fact that I had an incident where I something happened with my mom, and she kind of knew what was going on, and kind of found out more details about what was going on. And her disappointment is the number one
Mm,
thing that helped me changed my life. So, and from that day, I just started praying. I accepted God and completely turned my life around. Because I just wasn't that person. And in the beginning, like I knew this path growing up as a kid in high school, outside of high school. I knew this whole path of who I wanted to be and very successful. Like it was always in my mind, and then all this hit me, and then it goes
yeah.
south, and then I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing, and where again, for me, I have a close relationship with my mom, so like seeing her upset at something I was doing was very disappointing, and it just made me realize like this isn't who I am. So I would rather struggle than do what I was doing. And but yeah, so that led me to finding God, and which was never my thing growing up. And so now that's number one in my life. So
Uh,
that's probably the biggest moment that got me to where I am. So
that's powerful. Yeah. Well, she knew the real you if you were close,
yeah,
right? And helped you look yourself in the mirror and say, this is not the real me, and I'm gonna get
hmm
back on track. So
absolutely,
that's great. So how hard
absolutely.
was it? I guess was that, I mean, sometimes you have such an emotional change, it's easy to make things stick, but was there things that you had to be very intentional about or habitual about to not go back into old cycles?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because when like you mentioned, you hang around a certain type of person, right? And now you have to eliminate that type of person. And there were a lot of those type of people. So I'm eliminating all these people out of my life, eliminating all these things out of my life, trying to make better moves and do things. And it was a struggle. I mean, it wasn't easy, but yeah, I just pushed through and relied on friends and family that I could really count on and trust. And there was a good friend of mine that who actually is the person that kind of got me into the roofing sales. His brother was a manager for the company that I went to work for, and he had just said, "Hey, they're hiring," and he's like, "I could probably get you on because I know you're trying to change your life." And so yeah, that's what happened. And then I ran with it. So my first location I went to was Oklahoma, and it was a struggle again for 2 months because I was trying to get in the groove of things, and
Right.
wasn't a lot of training on like what I was doing. So it was like I was just kind of guessing, but I've always been a good salesperson. So within a 6 month time period, I was just cranking away. And then, I think maybe my second year in or something like that, I was making multiple six figures from just selling. So
Wow.
it was a huge transition.
Yeah.
But again, it just opened my mind to like back to what my original thought was of who I could be, and then obviously it's always a journey, right? Like we're always going
Yeah.
through this journey of like who we want to be and what can we be, what can we do. So it's ongoing, but it was a huge eye opener because it's like, okay, I can actually do this and do this legally, right? And I'm actually making this kind of money and enjoying what I do and traveling. I mean, it was a really cool thing. And again, I prayed for that too, which is crazy, I was like actively praying for things to come into my life, and it just randomly an opportunity showed up, and it so happened it worked out. So it was really cool to see all that kind of take place.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think I don't know. For me personally, I maybe I'm afraid to pray for things that I really want because it's like, oh, that's maybe selfish, or that's maybe I don't deserve that. You might tell yourself all these stories, but it sounds like that's really served you. And obviously, I know you well enough to know like you're doing everything for the glory of God and for His kingdom, and not just doing it for you and your own selfish needs, right?
Absolutely, man, absolutely. Because I think a lot of people get confused, like when people become successful. I mean, and there are people that do this, but like a lot of people that become successful came from nothing, anyways. Like a majority of them came from nothing. So a lot of those people want to give back and
Yeah.
help people. And so yeah, absolutely, I 100% try to do that in every single way I can, whether it's financially or just verbally talking with somebody. Anything. It doesn't matter, just as long as I can be a help to someone else. So, but yeah, I think it's just a big thing that a lot of people kind of don't associate with people that are doing well, and so many people that are doing well they never experienced that growing up, and they just dreamed of it and they made it happen. And
Hmm.
I think praying for things is very important, and the Bible even talks about we should pray and ask and you shall receive. And it's one of those things where like God wants people to be successful, because if we are successful and we have more, then we can give more. So I think praying for that type of stuff is a great thing. And then also that leads to so many other things with family life. Think of how many things you can do that maybe other people can't experience, or that you can do for people that they've never been able to experience on their own. So there's a big power in that, and being able to help people.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing stuff for sure. So when you started your company, did you have when you got into it was a roofing business, right? Your first company in construction
Right. Yes.
started off with roofing. Did you have a vision of what that would look like, in a long term, or did you just want to start something and figure it out later?
Yeah, it was a start something, figure it out later. And again, I've always been really good at sales, so it started quick, and it started happening really fast.
Mhm.
And it definitely got overwhelming for a little bit, because you're trying to do everything on your own. And so yeah, it definitely was, let's just get it going and see what happens, and we'll work it out when the time comes. I knew nothing. I mean, I even went to a business college for a brief time. I ended up dropping out, which is funny. But yeah, it's like what they were teaching. I thought, for one, I thought none of these teachers have ever owned a business, which was a fact. And then they're teaching you things that really didn't make sense. It wasn't real world stuff, and I could spot it then. But my experience of learning business is just on my own, and mentors, and following people, and building relationships, and learning from others, books. But yeah, it definitely was never in the beginning a structured company or structured business at all.
Gotcha. Was there ever any particular moment where you really felt trapped and you didn't know what to do with that business or how to scale it or get out of the situation you were in?
Yeah, I think so. I think when my partner died, that was tough for me, because again, it was very close. And
Mhm.
it was just a period of time and of just doubt, and like, hey, can I do this on my own? But also just what to do next, and then like how to get over this like mind of, okay, you just lost this person. And then 6 months before him, I had just lost another childhood friend that was like a brother to me. So, there were some times, where it definitely was tough in just trying to get past that. And then as far as like figuring out the business stuff or learning how to scale, yeah, I reached out to some people that were in the industry and actually joined another group that was specific to that industry. And that really helped me kind of start opening my eyes to like what was out there and what was
Mm.
possible, where I wasn't in this bubble, in Indianapolis, that I didn't see out of, because that's really, I think, what it was. So it kind of just opened my mind, kind of similar to the group we're in, right? You learn from others, and everybody's got an idea or input that you can use, so it was really a key thing for me.
Yeah, I think it's really important what you just said there, though, is you got out of the bubble and you said, "I need help. I'm going to look at who's doing really well at this." And instead of reinventing the wheel yourself, you can, get a mentor. You can get around peers that are doing what you want to do and better, and then you can level up to what they know and what their experience is. So I think so many of us just think, nope, this is mine. I've got to figure it out myself, and drive ourselves crazy. And some people are successful, but in that, but me personally, I learned to ski by being from North Dakota and going to school in Montana, and jump. I just ran with the guys that skied very, very well, and they were jumping off of 20, 30 foot cliffs and doing all this crazy stuff. And I
Wow.
never jumped off any cliffs, but I damn sure learned how to ski pretty quickly and
Yeah.
keep up with them. So I've always used that analogy in life. It was something I wanted to learn, and I just found the people that were best, that were in my peer group or right next to a peer group, and I just jumped in. So
Absolutely, man.
sounds like that's
Yeah.
what you did.
Yeah. Well, there's a huge power in it too, because you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room.
Absolutely not.
Most of the time, not unless you're teaching, which is fine. But you can learn from everybody, and everybody's made a mistake, and you can learn from their mistakes and avoid that. So I 100% agree.
Yeah. Yeah. You can definitely shortcut your path that way. Well, good. So I guess before we conclude here completely, you mentioned early on, one of the things that you're focused on now is helping people build a business or scale it up or even set it up for a possible exit in the future. What does that What does that look like? Is it any particular niche, or is it construction only, or other things?
No, I'm open to any business. So I'm really excited about service based companies and also tech companies, because I think obviously tech's not going away. And then on the service based companies, these are all companies that made it through COVID, and with the biggest shutdown we've had. And a lot of people lost companies, a lot of people lost several things in their lives. But companies that were able to make it through that, a lot of those service based companies were able to do that because there's a need. Like, we always need roofers, we always need plumbers, so even some of the pool companies I know, they were doing great during those times. So it's just very interesting, how the service-based industries have kind of taken off, and now you have a lot of large corporations and blanket companies looking at buying these and packaging these companies. So I think those two things I'm excited most about. But outside of that, I'm open to anything. And kind of how I structure those deals is I'll come in as more of a hands-off type consultant, if you want to say. And I really just am showing how to structure to scale, how to implement certain things in the company, implement, a sales force, management force, and really just kind of take that person from, where they are to what their goal is. So, say if you have a company that maybe they're doing 1 million a year, and they want to get to 10 million a year. So we'll come in and we'll put a plan together on how to do that, structure things. And then, fee side, I basically come in as a shareholder for a piece of the company. Typically not majority, as like I said, I'm more hands off. It's more to scale, and then if there's an exit possible, that pays off for everybody, or a percentage of the upside. So if they're doing 1 million a year and they're looking to get to 7 million a year, I'll structure a deal where I just make a percentage on anything over 1 million a year. So, and there's several other ways to structure it as well, but that's typically the basics. And but yeah, I'm open to any business, and really, I like to dive in to see exactly what's going on, and just try to help them achieve that goal that they're wanting to get to. So, because a lot of people get stuck. They're getting stuck at 1 million, they're getting stuck at 5 million, and they get stuck at 10 million, whatever the case is. And obviously, like we've had those issues in our company as well, but we grow and get past those. And again, I've been able to learn from people smarter than me on how to do certain things and how to structure things and implement people, processes, culture. So, taking all that knowledge and bringing it into someone that hasn't experienced that, or maybe they don't have time to experience that, or learn those things. I can come in and really kind of help scale their company. So, yeah.
Gotcha. For a company that wants to go from say 1 million in revenue to 10 million, what's the number one thing that holds most back? Like, is there a common theme?
Yeah, I would say there really is. It's getting themselves out of the way. And again, I found this firsthand with myself. When I really started growing is when I started letting other people do things. So, and so many entrepreneurs, I mean, that's why we're in the position is we want to handle everything. We want to take over everything. We think we know it all. We're learning everything. We're trying to implement all these different strategies or whatever the case is, but we never want to let go. And when we let go and we can show people how to fill a role, we may take a hit. It may be a sacrifice financially, but if you're wanting to grow, that is the way to grow. So I would say the biggest piece would be get yourself out of the way, allow other people that are better at doing things than you are in different positions, allow them to come into your company and really just build a culture. That's what you're trying to do, is build a culture, build an environment that people want to be in. And then you can scale and scale and scale, but the more you are involved and the more that you're doing all this day-to-day stuff, it's holding you back from seeing the vision of actually scaling. And we just had the speaker at our group event when we were down in Florida. So Eric Spofford, so he's a good one to follow as well if anybody's not following him.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he just exited a company for 150 million. And I had a conversation with him. He was helping me with something else on another piece, and he basically was talking about, at a certain point he stepped down as CEO, and then at another point he stepped down as the position he was in, and then finally he was just a board member. And that's on another level at 150 million, but it's the same thing, right? It's like, if we're trying to do everything, then we don't have time for actually implementation of processes and people and showing people how to grow. So if you want to build a sales team, but you're the primary sales guy, it's very hard to build a sales team. So you have to take yourself out of those positions, show others how to do it, and then teach them how to be successful while you're doing it. And that's really worked for me, of just showing people how to make money. We bring people on and they've maybe made $40,000 a year, and now we're showing them how to make 100 or 150 or 200,000 in sales. For one, it's a great feeling, but it's also like a lot of people can't fathom that. I'm stuck.
Yeah.
I never make 60,000 a year. Well, here's an opportunity. I'm going to show you to make 100,000 a year, right? And with that kind of vision and leading them to want that, it really pays off, because now you have an atmosphere of people that want to win with you. So, but yeah, that key piece is getting yourself out of it, not out of the company where you're not working, but out of every single position in the company. You have to be able to structure people to come in, get managers in, and get people to help you grow.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah,
there's no secret sauce or something you can buy. I mean, it's all right here between your ears, right? It's a decision to do that, and then letting go and
right.
empowering others to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, love that. Well, Mark, if you could pull your younger self aside, maybe when you were 20 years old, what's the most meaningful advice that you would give him right now?
Um, I would probably, I don't know. I would say learn, like build knowledge earlier. Because again, I had a lot of wasted time, and I thought I knew it all. Even when I was in college, one of the reasons I dropped out is because I was doing well and I thought I knew everything. I didn't see their vision for business, but I also, like, I thought I knew it all, and I that probably held me back some, because I wasn't open enough to learn more. So if I could go back 10 years, I would say build my knowledge and grind even harder, because I think the biggest mistake someone can make is being lazy or complacent. And I definitely have had times of both of those. So, when it's like, I'm obviously in a better position now, but if I could change that 10 years ago and say, hey, just put this amount of work in, don't stop grinding, I would probably be even further ahead, maybe 5 years ahead. I don't know. So that's definitely what I would tell my younger self.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Well, Mark, how can our guests find you or connect with you if they ever want to work with you or just reach out?
You could always email me. My email is Andrew, Andrew, capital, @protonmail.com. But honestly, the easiest way to connect with me is on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. You can find me on there, but Facebook is the official Mark Andrew. Yeah, so that's the easiest way to connect with me. And then I connect with people on there all the time. I'm not on a lot. I'm not super active on social, but if someone requests, to be a friend on there, that's fine. I'll definitely accept it. And again, if someone has a deal that they're looking at, which they come all the time, and I do look at most all deals. I don't act on all of them, but I'm always open to hear any deals, any ideas. It could be a startup, even completely open to anything.
Okay, awesome. Well, Mark, this was an honor having you on the show here. Come to know you as a friend of mine, a good friend that I can rely on and call when things aren't going well. So again, thank you for sharing a little bit of your time with our guests here today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Mike. It's definitely been fun.
Yeah, awesome. All
All
right.
right.
So for those of you listening here today, just think about one big idea or takeaway from what Mark shared with you. And from that, take some kind of action, big or small, and work on expanding your boundaries. And one final ask here for everybody. If you could just do me a favor and share this episode with at least one friend or somebody you know that could be helped by today's show, the wisdom that Mark gave us, and just share that. Or you can put it on social media again if you want to share it to a broader audience. I'd really appreciate that. So with that, we'll conclude today's episode. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.